Welcome back to Rollin with Olan. I'm Jeff Olan, your host. And today's guest is Richard Kerner, founder of Kerner Management Associates, KMA. Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Richard and I have known each other for a long time. He's a manager to mainly actors, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk all about the business. Richard has been a personal manager for actors, like I said, for over 20 years, over 2 decades. That's a long time. Let's get into the early days, Richard. Can you tell us like where you grew up, and tell the audience where you grew up, and who were you as a little tyke?
I grew up in Long Island, New York. As a tyke, I was a kid who enjoyed sports and played a little bit of everything. My father was a big sports guy, liked to play sports, and was a big sports fan, which he instilled in me. And my family had a printing company in New York City, and I grew up around that. There were five Kerners at the Kerner Printing Company, and having nothing to do with show business.
Yeah,
And that was supposed to be my future, meaning I was
they wanted
never
you to go.
pressured into that. But my uncle, it was my father, my uncle, my two first cousins, my brother-in-law worked there, and a bunch of employees, and that was just made available to me. And one of the things that I enjoyed about it was the creative side of it. We dealt with advertising agencies, graphic artists, photographers, and that creative element interested me. And then at some point, I decided that was not my calling, and I walked away from it and eventually made my way to Southern California.
Eventually, and you went to college, of course, and you did all that. You eventually made your way. Do you know what year that was? Of course you do. We all remember.
I
What
do, I
year
know
was that?
exactly. Um, I left Manhattan in January of 1989 on a freezing cold day, and I said, I'm glad to be leaving New York. And my good buddy of mine had moved to San Diego and encouraged me to come try it. So what I thought my plan would be was to go to San Diego for a year, screw around. I actually subletted my apartment in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, and I thought, I'll just screw around for a year,
Have some
do some
fun.
work, and
California.
then come back to New York. But what I call Southern California is quicksand,
Yeah.
that it lulls you in the weather in particular. And if you don't get out fast, you're not getting out. So that part kind of stayed with me. I did spend 4 years in San Diego, had a couple of business opportunities, and then eventually decided that it was time to do something else. And for a minute, I probably thought, maybe I'll go back to New York, but I was called to stay in Southern California, and then I made my way to Los Angeles.
Okay, so we have a mutual buddy, Fred. Was that the friend that you're talking about? Fred, Fred Robbins?
That's a different friend. That's a different friend. Fred and I met in San Diego in an acting class.
Oh, wow.
So we were both adults, and we were just trying this acting class. It was actually a really good LA actor who had a studio in San Diego. And that was my first exposure into acting. I had never done it in high school. I don't remember ever doing a play in high school. I can't recall one,
Yeah.
but that was my orientation into acting was in San Diego with our mutual friend
Yeah, with
Fred.
our music. Yeah. And so why'd you give up acting?
So I did study for probably a year or two. I was probably 30-ish in age. And I'll step back a little bit. Actually, before that class, I went to a community college in San Diego called Mesa College. And I took an acting class there, elementary acting, like a basic acting class. And the head of the department was telling us, there's an actress who went to school in our little 2-year program, and she's doing really well. And she just finished a movie with Warren Beatty, and then she's doing a movie with Robert De Niro, and then this and this and this and that. And we're going to give her an award. So our whole little Mesa College theater department came to give this woman an award. And she shows up, and it turns out it was Annette Bening.
Oh, wow.
And she was very gracious and very humble. And you could just, this was like her early days of stardom, really, like when her career was really taking off. And I knew what we were in the presence of a star. And she said a couple of things. She said, if acting is in your heart, pursue it with everything you have. Stay away from the naysayers and pursue that creative dream. And she also said, Hollywood is a big business, and there are many different things you can do in Hollywood. So you may start here, and you may go on to do other things. You might become a writer, a director, a set designer, or all these different things. So that stayed with me. And I did make that move thanks to our friend Fred. Said, Rich, if we're going to get serious about this, we got to get the hell out of San Diego and move to LA. So we
Sounds
did.
like him.
We were roommates in LA, and we started the journey there. But and I came to act, as many people do come here to act. But after maybe 6 months or a year, I just realized, first of all, I had a lot of ground to make up because I started acting at like 30 years old. And I just didn't want to have that waiter job or that other thing, or I didn't have that in me, and I didn't think it was my calling. So I went back to my business background. I studied business in college. I worked for my family for maybe 8 years, grew up around a corporation. So I went back to my roots, if you will, and decided to get into the business side of Hollywood.
Wow. Rich, we both know so many people do that, and it's a good thing you did that, and you made that transition. And the Annette Bening story is great because she put that little thing into your ear,
Yeah.
right, to make that change. So you came to LA, you changed things up a little bit, and then somewhere along the line you got a job at the one of the biggest agencies in the world, the William Morris Agency. What were you doing there, and how did you get that job? And tell us a little bit about that.
It's a fun story. So I decided acting wasn't for me. And then I said, okay, what is Hollywood? What is the business? So I started reading the Daily Variety and the Hollywood Reporter every day. That became a great education for me, just to read, they call them the trades.
Yeah.
And to read those two magazines, if you will, every day, word for word, it really taught me a lot. And I started learning about the different jobs and the different deals that are being made. So I actually got a temp job at William Morris through a temp agency. And the way many agents are born are in what's called the agent training program. They have it at William Morris, they have it at CAA, they have it at all the big agencies. But you have to go through a strict process to get into that agent training program. You're interviewed, you have to be sponsored maybe, or, it's a whole process to get into that mail room. That's where it begins.
Mailroom, right?
Literally deliver mail. But when an assistant is out or on vacation, you will then become what's called a floater, and you'll sit on that agent's desk. You'll be their assistant for a day or a week or whatever. So that's how you begin to learn about being an agent, and you're being mentored by an agent. Now, my temp job was to literally deliver mail for the holidays. So I'm now in the group of the agent trainees, but I'm just there for the holidays to deliver mail. But I've always had this philosophy of kind of walk like you belong and just kind of merge in. So I just kind of merged into the group. And maybe the head of the mailroom, literally like a mailroom guy, an older man, just kind of started choosing me to then go up and sit on agents' desks.
Wow.
And the holidays ended, and they kept me on. And I basically merged into the agent training program without being in the agent training program. Incredible. So I just started assisting different agents, literary agents, talent agents. One day I was on the desk of Jason Alexander's agent, I remember, and just started to learn. And being the antsy New Yorker I am, and I even started interviewing to be a full-time assistant. That's where you want to get to. But at the same time, since that job was a temporary assignment, if you will, I was interviewing at some other places, and I got a job at another talent agency, which was a very strong boutique agency called Susan Smith and Associates.
Mm-hmm.
She had an agency in LA and New York. She was a New Yorker. She took a liking to me and she hired me. So rather than floating around William Morris and taking that sort of slower, longer approach, I started to work as Susan's assistant. And that was my first full-time job in Hollywood. And I really started to learn, well, through both places, I was really absorbing and learning what is it to be a talent representative.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to that, but I want to just stop something because for years and years we have all heard about the mailroom and people starting in the mailroom, and then all of a sudden they become managers or agents or whatever.
Major agents, some
So
of the biggest.
were you like pushing around a big cart of mail? And I mean, literally, because these big agencies like William Morris or CAA, Endeavor, they are humongous agencies. I mean, humongous. So is that what
Yep.
you were doing, like pushing a cart and going from office to office and
Correct.
giving the mail, right?
That's it. And then
And
other
giving
than the
it to an
days where they
assistant.
call me up, it's like being a baseball player. I get called out of the bullpen, and then I become an assistant for a day on an agent's desk.
Wow.
So I
Tell
would
us
do,
about the mailroom. I mean, the actual mailroom. Was there a lot of people in the mailroom?
yeah, maybe I want to say maybe 8 or 9 agent trainees in there, and the manager of the mailroom. I'm trying to think. There might have been 1 or 2 full-time employees in there. I forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a bunch of people huddled in this little mailroom,
Yeah.
and it became like a little fraternity of guys and girls. There was some lawyers in there making like it was probably $250 a week. People with law degrees and masters that wanted to become agents, and there they are making $250 a week for the chance to become an agent.
It's incredible because you and I both know a lot have, and a lot have become agents, and a lot have had very very successful careers. So you were with Susan, and I know she was a ball buster. I had heard.
She
So
was
you were
a
with
tough
her,
lady.
a real tough lady, and William Morris, and learning from them and learning from her. How did you start? How did you start? Like how did it go from Susan to then? You getting out there and, starting to build your own company and getting clients.
I'll tell you. So I was working for Susan, and she repped Kathy Bates for the entirety of Susan's life.
Hmm.
Susan passed away a few years ago, but she represented Kathy Bates and Brian Dennehy, another wonderful actor, and many other great actors, some Oscar nominees, Oscar winners. So she had a really strong agency, and she was a strong agent and a tough lady. I always say she had more cojones than any man I ever met in Hollywood. But I was learning for her. It wasn't easy to work for her. She demanded a lot, but I was learning. And I could have gone down the agent path. I also have a sales background. That's what I did for my family's business. I sold printing services. And to be an agent, you need to be a salesperson. So I was kind of leaning in that direction to maybe go down that road. But then I discovered management. I'm realizing managers are calling Susan and they share clients. Oh, that's another type of talent representation. And what I liked about that was it felt more personal. Actually, our technical term is called a personal manager, and more creative. Mm-hmm. I compare agents to stockbrokers. They're about making deals and creating opportunities and negotiating deals. So a little more business oriented, if you will. Whereas being a manager, I felt it's more creative oriented. Working with the creative process. And that's what I was really interested in. So I left Susan's company and got a job as an assistant at a small management company and continued my learning process there. And then one day I just said to my bosses, it's funny, the company was called K and K Entertainment. Both their last names started with K. So I then just told them one day, hey, I'd like to represent this person. I'd like to represent this person. So I was being an assistant and then also starting to represent actors. But when I would call, I'd say, this is Richard Kerner from K&K Entertainment. People just kind of assumed, oh, this is his company or something.
Yeah.
Again, I just merged into the process of becoming a manager. So it started there. And then after about 2 years, I left there and then got my first full-time job as a manager at another management company.
And so you So you went from that other management company, and obviously this is in your 30s. So it's not like
Yeah,
you started right out the gate at 20
early
years old.
30s.
This
Yeah.
is in your 30s, and you're just now really kind of figuring out and coming into your own and figuring out what it is you want to do. Um, so how was it after working for that other management company then? How long was it after that that you decided, you're basically going to start maybe repping your own people and then getting involved with your own
Yeah, well,
agency?
I started to do that while I was at that first management company, and I was splitting my time of being their assistant and being a manager with their support. So I was learning from them; they were helping me, and then I decided to leave, and then went to another. So to answer your question, I think it was a couple of years I was at that first management company.
Mhm, mhm. And then you were there and did whatever and learned, and then you open up your agency, right?
No, no, no. I
Okay.
worked for two. I worked for another management company in Beverly Hills called Art
Mhm.
House Entertainment. There's a woman who owned it, so we were two managers at that company, and there I was a full time manager, and she and I were collaborating and helping each other. And again, I was still learning and growing. And then after 2 years there, I went to another management company in Beverly Hills and worked there. Similar scope. There were a couple of other managers there. They were starting to produce some stuff, and and after a couple of years there, that's when there was some changes in the company, and I wasn't fitting into the new configuration. So in essence, I was let go. But I decided, and I probably interviewed for some jobs, and the right thing wasn't coming to fruition. So I decided at that point to just take all my clients because they were all willing to come with me wherever I was. And I hung my own shingle of Kerner Management in 2004. And I just
Right.
started literally doing it from my home, my apartment in LA, and then eventually got an office and just been doing that as Kerner Management since 2004.
Okay. Well, I want to get into that, but what I want to get into a little bit before, because you have some really, I mean, your client list is really really good. Let me just talk about what a manager, if you could talk about a little bit of exactly what a manager does for their clients and a manager as opposed to an agent. You mentioned that a little bit earlier, but like how much deal making are you involved in and whatever? And can you explain what a manager does for actors and actresses?
Yes. I mean, manager and agents have similar responsibilities, but also different. And managers in general are a little more connected to their clients. So we're communicating more with our clients. And the answer to your question is we are involved in every deal that's made for our clients. The agents will tend to lead those deals and those negotiations, but it's all in conjunction with me and my services and my input. So the agent might be in the front line of a deal, but it's going to come back to me and the client to then discuss amongst ourselves, maybe even discuss together with the agent, or maybe the client and I will discuss a deal. I'll go back to the agent. Hey, get more money, get this, more of that. And then, so that's kind of how that works. And then as a manager, we're also creating opportunities. We're submitting clients, we're pitching them. So again, that's similar to what an agent does. And then we're also working closer with the actors on their whole career, the whole strategy. For instance, let's say they don't have an agent, or their agent has kind of exhausted their resources and it's time for us to find a new agent. So those things would be my responsibility to help the client advance their career.
So you really get involved with them in their life and what their branding per se, right? And who they are and what direction they go in. And you learned all this along the line. And you also, you have a knack with talking with people. And so they deal with you and they deal with their agent. But like you said, you're more of a personal. You get to know them a little bit more personally than the agent does themselves.
In general, yes.
Right, right. So you have okay, before we go into your clients, how do you get your clients? I mean, you had already created a little bit of a client list before you opened up your agency. How do you go out and get your clients? What's the key factors of getting the right client, and what are you looking for? I mean, I guess that's a couple different questions there.
But there are few ways I get clients. Um, Actors are referred to me often from agents, from casting directors, from current clients. So actors are referred to me. Also, actors pursue me, meaning my emails out there and lists or whatever. So I get emails from actors, um, and occasionally I'll seek out a certain client that there might be someone I'm interested in, and maybe I see they don't have a manager. I'll contact the agent. In a case recently, there was a mixed ethnic actors are in demand. You know, part this ethnicity and that ethnicity, biracial, things of that nature. So I just noticed that in the marketplace that there are a lot of people looking for mixed ethnic actors. So I was seeking out clients like that, and I came across a guy that I really like who's biracial. I think he submitted to me maybe, and I took him on. And then there was a girl I came across who's 1/4 Korean and mixed ethnic, and I really liked her look and the mixed ethnicity, and took her on. And of course, I liked her talent and her, you know, my sense of working with her. I thought she'd be a good person, a good client to work with. And so I've taken them on. And the girl actually just booked a really fun role on The Pit, the new HBO
Nice,
Noah
yeah,
Ryan.
yeah. No, that's a good one. So you've had and you have great clients. One of your main clients is Michael Gross, who played
Yes.
the dad on Family Ties with Michael J. Fox,
Yeah.
and also Meredith Baxter, who's in that, who's also a client of yours. How do you
Yes.
get people like that?
Michael, I pursued. Um, I forget who he was with, but he did not have management, and I pursued him and set a meeting. We had a coffee, God, 15 years ago in at Moro's Cafe by Fred Siegel in LA off Melrose, and we just connected and decided to work together. And we've had a wonderful relationship. Not only is he a wonderful actor, and most people know him from Family Ties, but he's equally adept at drama. And he always says, if you ever see me on a Law and Order episode, I did it. So he's always, the businessman with an edge, and he committed the crime. So we and then he's also done those Tremors movies, which has a tremendous cult following. We booked him on a bunch of those, and aside from how talented he is, he's just a wonderful man, and we've had to become friends and had a great personal and professional relationship.
You look a little bit like him, at least right now you do. You know, look, he's
I'd
great.
like to have his career.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure, and it just keeps going. It keeps going, and you have him, and you have, like I said, Meredith Baxter. You have other clients, including Kim Rhodes and Don Stark, all terrific actors. Stephen Williams. You have Darcy Donovan, who I know. She started as an extra for me, which was crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. But wonderful, wonderful people out there. I mean, your clients list, Richard's list of clients have worked on everything. I just want to mention a few of the shows, the gambit of hit shows from Mad Men, The Walking Dead, Grace and Frankie, The Sopranos, Seinfeld, ER for anyone who remembers that one with George Clooney and so many others. I mean, it's pretty incredible that you've been able to, be at the forefront to help these people, obviously manage their careers, get them out on these terrific shows and so many others. How does that make you? How does that make you feel just knowing what you've been able to do for all these people?
It feels good. I've had clients work on such a wide variety of projects. They've worked for Steven Spielberg in movies. Barry Levinson, a wonderful filmmaker, has hired one of my clients on a movie. Woody Allen. I've
Oh
had
wow!
Don Stark was in a movie called Cafe Society, and so many TV shows, both network shows to all the cable shows and streaming shows. So I have had clients that have worked on, hundreds, if not over 1,000 different movie studios, film. I have a client in the new Superman film right now, and then the TV shows are just countless.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, what's your favorite part about managing?
It's I'm glad you asked that. When I just said what I said, I'm a business guy, but again, I call myself a creative businessman, so I do enjoy that aspect of the business, creating the opportunity or getting the audition from the agent, supporting the actor to go out and get it, the part. But one of the things I really enjoy is seeing the work.
Yeah.
That all the things that led up to that job, even the Superman thing, my client has a small role in it, but he had to go to New Mexico and how he pursued the job, and he auditioned and shot down there for a week or so, and then came back, and then we were anticipating, part of it is, will he end up in the cut?
Yeah.
He had one scene. He could easily not be in the movie. We didn't know. So then we saw the movie, and he's in the movie. He's got a really great scene. And so to me, that I call that the icing on the cake. Seeing the work, being able to share in that journey with the client, and it is very rewarding to me.
Yeah, no, it must be. And, I mean, any of us that are in the industry, we have our own stories about that. But I think that's really, the gist of it, right? It's like seeing the work, seeing everything we have done, whether it's working with people or working on a production, and then seeing it on the big screen or seeing it on the small screen or whatever. I mean, it is a thrill. It's a great biz, Um, did you have any mentors? I mean, I'm guessing, even though she was a ball buster, Susan, but maybe I'm wrong. But did you have any mentors or people that really you would go to either, every once in a while, or people that pushed you along the way?
Um, yes. What I'll say is Susan Smith, yes. I definitely learned from her. I don't know that her intent was to mentor me, so I'm not going to call it a mentor-mentee relationship per se, but I realize that if I'm going to succeed at this or anything, what would be smart for me to do is just to observe and learn and watch what other people are doing. So I very intently listened, watched, and learned from Susan. So I learned some good things and some things that didn't work for me.
Right.
So I did learn from her. And then I'll say those two other management companies I worked at, once I became a full-time manager, that they were managers too and business people. And having worked with each of them for 2 years, I learned things to help me succeed as a manager. And then just my own natural business instincts and personality kicked in and allowed me to develop my own voice as a manager.
Yeah. Do you go out to sets a lot when your clients are working?
I used to a lot, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was another really fun. I'm glad you mentioned that. It was a fun part of my job,
Yeah.
just to really see that creative process. I remember you mentioned Grace and Frankie. I visited Michael Gross on the set and got to meet Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda and watch Michael's scene. So that's fun. Then once the pandemic happened, that was not allowed.
Yeah.
You can only be on the set if it was mandatory.
Right.
And then ever since then, I've just done less of that. But for many years I did it, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you mentioned the pandemic, and it seems like forever ago, but it's not that long ago. I remember we were not allowed on the sets. The managers, the agents, the publicists, nobody
If it
was
wasn't
allowed on the sets.
mandatory for that production, you were not allowed on the set.
Not allowed, nowhere close. And they had circles. They would have they'd have the main actors and the director in one circle, and then there'd be an
Yeah,
outer circle and other
quadrants. Yeah.
people. Yeah, and I mean, this is what I heard. This is what I saw. I wasn't there because but it hasn't been the same since with going on sets and all that. And I love going on sets as well. Do do us a favor. Can you just break down in a short sense of what the day to day life of a manager is? you've got your clients, you've got your list of people, you want to get them out. I know you send them out or whatever, but is there any kind of, I mean, is there something you learned, or each manager has their own thing, or what's yours?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for each manager, it's somewhat different. My daily routine is I wake up, I get to my computer, and I kind of look at anything that's carried over from the night before. Maybe a couple of auditions have come in. Maybe there were a couple of things I needed to follow up on in the morning. Maybe I need to make sure a client received an audition that came in late the night before. So I begin there. And then I get into the breakdowns and casting process of looking through the breakdowns every day, which I do. I look at every role that's being cast on the breakdowns every day. So I do that. And then throughout the day, stuff comes up. I have to speak to a client about something, speak to an agent, pitch someone to a casting director, negotiate a deal, either myself or with the agent. So all of that is part of my daily routine.
And how is it for, we all know, I mean, I've had guests on before, we've talked about it. Right now it's a little bit slower than it has ever been in the States, in California. How is it for you and your clients? Are you able to get them out, and what's happening?
Yes. What I will say, it seems to be picking up. There were two things that slowed things down with the two strikes,
Yeah.
which was awful. Really put a halt on a lot, if not everything.
Yeah.
And those were resolved. And then I believe there's been some effect of the limited tax incentive in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain projects that have left LA, which would create a little less casting here for LA-based actors, though I do have clients in New York and the Southeast as well. But most of my clients are in LA. So all of that, now there is a new tax incentive in LA, so that should be helping. And I do feel some momentum, and I feel like things are picking up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm feeling it a little bit, but we'll, it's a wait and see, right? Once that money gets distributed and what have you, but we'll see what happens on that. Can you tell us any, like, either, do you have any great memories or stories that you want to tell, or, about negotiating a deal perhaps with somebody, or something happening to one of your clients that you never thought, or anything like that come to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, there are many different stories. One bad
Story
one was
time.
a client booked a big movie. He was about to go on location for 3 months. So I guess the lesson to be learned here is until it's done, it's not done. And he ended up getting hit by a car a few days before he was supposed to go on location for 3 months. He was okay, but he was injured. And because of the injury, they recast him in the role.
Wow.
So again, the lesson to be learned there is just, be careful, be ready, take care of yourself, and, make sure could do the job. Because it was a great gig. He was going to make a bunch of money and spend 3 months on a studio movie. And the accident cost him the movie. So that was a not so great one. Though I did get him paid part of his salary, though, because they didn't really do their due diligence to check him out and examine him. But a real positive one that happened is a client of mine booked what was auditioning for a movie that was called The Visitor by a wonderful filmmaker named Tom McCarthy, who did The Station Agent. It was a hit indie film with Bobby Cannavale and Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
And this was his second movie. And it was a very interesting story about an older man played by Richard Jenkins who stumbles upon this foreign couple who are staying in his apartment in New York, because he was a professor and he'd teach in Connecticut, but he had this little apartment in New York. And unbeknownst to the couple, the landlord was illegally allowing them to rent the apartment because he knew the tenant was usually not there. So Richard Jenkins comes home and discovers this couple in the apartment, and then he ends up taking a liking to them and trying to help them and keep them in the country. But my client was asked to audition, which he did. And the casting director, I think, was in from New York because that's where the movie was shooting. And then they called me and they said, we would like to call your client back. And it was a wonderful script and a great opportunity. It was a lead role. There were like 4 primary actors in the movie, and my clients would be one of them. But that callback for Tom McCarthy, the director, was in New York. So I said, oh, well, will they fly my client to New York? Because I've had that happen before. I mean, nowadays, you probably just do Zoom. Yeah. But I've had clients traveled and flown for callbacks.
Yeah.
So they said no. They said there are 3 actors being considered for this role. The actor speaks in English, Arabic, and a little bit of French. One actor was based in New York. My client was in LA. The other actor was based in France. And they said, whoever gets it, we'll reimburse them. I said, well, anyway, I thought, well, you should reimburse the people that don't get it.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway,
of course.
That was the deal. And I called my client. I said, look, here's the deal. We can either let your audition stand, because I think he actually already auditioned for Tom in LA, or you can travel yourself to the callback, and if you get it, they'll reimburse you. And he didn't think twice about it. He said, it's worth it. I'm going to book that ticket. I want this movie. He traveled himself to New York and he booked the movie. And it was a huge career boost for him. He got a Independent Spirit Award nomination for his role, Best Supporting Actor,
nice.
Which we went to that wonderful Spirit Award, evening. We had a table with the filmmakers and Richard Jenkins, who also was nominated. The director was nominated. And it was a career maker for him.
Those are great stories. I mean, look, when anyone tries to get into the industry as an actor, you don't necessarily have to have money behind you, but definitely make the right moves when situations like that come up. And that's what you're saying here. Fly to that audition for that possible role because, that's just what, and I know there's a lot of people that would, but, we really think about that. And especially the people that are involved and in, this case, or whatever, if you have a manager like Richard, you want to take, you want to take what they're saying very seriously because they know the business. So knowing the business, what advice would you give to anyone who maybe wants to become a manager? You've got to be a special person. You've got to know how to talk to people. You've got to, I'm assuming, let me not say it. I want to hear it from you. What does it take to become a manager, a good manager for actors and actresses?
The first part of your question, I'd say, to learn your trade. So like I did, whether it be working in an agency or ideally working at a management company, I think that's important to really learn what managers do. There are some books you can read, which I did that as well. There's a great book by a legendary manager named Bernie Brillstein that I read.
Can you say that again? What was that?
Bernie Brillstein was a legendary
manager.
Yeah,
big time, right.
He had a book, or wrote a book, I forget the name of it, but it was a great book to read. So there were some learning tools out there. I don't know that there's a class or a program you can take. But again, just working in that environment will begin to show you what to do, maybe what not to do. And then I think to be a successful manager, you have to, yes, communication is key. Relationships are key. Getting to know agents and casting directors, and then your ability to communicate with actors is essential. Obviously, that as managers we are close to our clients, so to be there for them, to be with them through the good times and the bad times. Sometimes you got to talk a client off the ledge. Maybe they're frustrated. I've had clients that wanted to give up or quit, and sometimes that could be appropriate, or other times, my job is to be there for them and listen, to be a little bit of a therapist sometimes, and help them through those challenging times, to get to what their goal is and to help them make creative decisions. Sometimes projects just happened today, actually. A project was offered to a client. I like to say yes. I think work begets work in general, but I didn't feel that this was the right opportunity for them. I spoke to the agent, I spoke to my client, and we all agreed, no, this is a pass. This is not the right opportunity for the client at this time. It was a little independent film, which I love independent films, but this one just didn't feel like the right one. So we passed on it.
Yeah, yeah. And how much do you and the agents, do you guys pretty much on the same page most of the time? Or are there times where the agent might say, we want it, and you say no, or vice versa? And what happens?
I'm gonna say yes. Most of the time we are in agreement, and then sometimes we're not.
Hmm. And then when you're not, what happens?
Uh,
Fireworks?
no, not so much. I mean, ultimately it'll be up to the client.
Yeah.
That let's say in this case that I thought we should pass on that, but the agent feels they should do it, then ultimately we'll present the information to the client, and then they make. Same with the client flying to New York, that I did give them the options. I said, look, you don't have to go. My recollection is that they taped him, and I believe he did meet the director at the Chateau Marmont. So he had been in the presence of the director and auditioned, but obviously it was narrowed down to 3 actors. And ultimately, I fully supported his decision to go because I felt that would give him that extra advantage.
Yeah, that's great.
And the agent agreed in that case as well.
Well, that's a good thing, obviously. How much do you have to learn? I'm guessing quite a bit, but as far as like the contracts and all that, do you read those over, or is that just through the agents? Do you have to know what's going on with the deal memos, the contracts, everything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I see them all. I read them. I'm not an attorney, but they're usually all the amendment to a contract, or what do you call those? The first 2 or 3 pages are what I can digest, and it gets into that 4-page rider.
Right.
I don't know what's going on there, but the important parts of the contract I'm familiar with, I'm aware of, and along with the agent, we'll negotiate those terms, and then if we need a lawyer to deal with the rider, then we'll do that. But mostly, we can deal with the primary part of the contract.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. If you weren't a manager now, or if you didn't go into becoming a manager, what do you think you would have been doing?
I would have been a movie star.
Of course.
I'm kidding. No, it was a fun, brief pursuit to be an actor. As I mentioned, I could have inherited my family's business and done that, but that wasn't my calling. So the best way that I can answer the question is a direction that I'm heading in, which is producing movies.
Mm-hmm.
That I've come across some scripts and material over the years that I really love. Some are with clients and some are not. And I've got 4 films that I'm developing and working on producing. One is getting really close to production right now. It's an inspirational sports movie. And that is a direction that I'm heading in. While I will continue to be a manager, I am developing these films and really hope and intend to be a film producer.
You will. You deserve it. You know enough about the business, and I know that. And is there a way that people can contact you? Whether it's for to maybe they're interested in either management, or maybe they're interested in seeing your scripts and all that.
Sure. I do have a website. I don't even know exactly I don't know.
It's a .com.
Whatever the .com is, but if you Googled Richard Kerner or Kerner Management Associates, you'd find it. Or my email address is rkerner, KMA@gmail.com. That's a way people can reach me.
Serious inquiries. No, it's It's great. And what else do you want to talk about as far as your career? Anything that's on your mind that maybe we've missed out on? I want to, I just try to help people as much as possible. And Richard, what you've been doing is just really incredible, helping so many actors along the way. And I'm sure you'll be doing more. And as a producer, you'll be doing more and so much more. I mean, we're in this industry. I suppose you and I are in this to stay. And we have our ups and we have our downs. But is there anything else you want to talk about that we haven't?
Um, I could talk a little bit more about the pursuit
Of happiness?
of no, the pursuit of acting.
Yeah.
That I think that's where it all begins with actors making that decision to be an actor. And one thing I will say is a fun antidote that I believe actors are born to be actors. I truly believe it's innate, and I will state that as a fact because when I ask this question of actors, and I ask almost every actor I've ever met, when did you decide you wanted to become an actor? What do you think that answer is, Jeff?
I I woke up and I just no, I don't know. I don't know. I have no
Okay.
idea.
So I asked that question specifically, when? And to me, logic would say, oh, when I was 16, when
Yeah.
you're like going to go to college or you're in high school or 17, 18, somewhere in there. That's what I would think the answer would be. But Jeff, 99 out of 100 actors say 5.
Wow.
Right around, and they don't say 6. They don't say no. Maybe they say 6, but right around there, 5, 6 years old. It blows me away. I kind of amuse myself when I ask the question. Oh, will someone say 18? No, they all say 5 or 6. So who the hell knows what they want to do at 5 or 6? Actors do. They know it's innate. So, like Annette Bening say, I would say, get away from the naysayers.
Yeah.
You're an actor. Pursue that dream. And then comes the pursuit. You got to learn it. Get in a play in high school. Go to an acting studio. Certainly, if you're in LA or New York, there are thousands of studios you can go to and get that acting education, and then really start to learn about what it is to be an actor and train to be an actor. That training is critical. It's crucial. That like anything else, you got to learn it and you got to train and you got to practice to be a successful actor, and then just dive in and pursue it, and pursue it with an open mind and an open heart, and really get into the creative process and learn. There's so many books on acting, and many are about the craft of acting and some are about the business of acting, and I think all of that's important. So for an actor to educate themselves, there's a wonderful teacher that I know and have gotten to know over the years named Larry Moss, Moss, as in Sam, one of the best in the business, wonderful man and a great acting teacher. He's been thanked when people win Oscars by Hilary Swank and Helen Hunt. I think it was for Something's Gotta Give. They thank Larry Moss on the platform when they're accepting an Oscar. And he has a book called The Intent to Live. And he specifically called it The Intent to Live as opposed to The Intent to Act. And he's got a wonderful book, which is to me, it should be essential reading for any actor. So as an actor, I think it's really important to learn your craft, to learn the business that you're in, and just dive in with both feet. And no, it's not going to be an easy ride. It takes a lot of hard work. Sometimes it can take 10 years to even get a career off the ground. And you just got to know, you got to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah, great advice. And yeah, 10 years it would be an overnight success story,
Right, exactly.
right? So, but I'm glad you mentioned, Larry Moss. I've heard of him for years and years. And, we had Bobby Chance on our show at
Oh,
one
yeah.
point in time, another really great acting coach. Get
Yes.
in with those types of people.
Yeah.
spend a little bit of money on your craft, but most of all, like you said, just learn as much as you can, because you're not going to get a manager like Richard. You're not going to get a great agent. You're not going to get seen unless really take it serious. And I always say, spend time on your career at least 6 days a week, and at least 2 hours a day, because there's always somebody else who's doing a little bit more than you if you're not, you know. But you talk about that. I just want to cover real quick. You talk about most actors, like when they're at 5 or 6 years old. I will tell you, that's probably why you and I aren't acting anymore. I was, but I just want to, as you were saying it, I was thinking about it. I mean, when I was 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, I was sitting in front of the TV, my parents in front of the bed watching TV, and I always said, I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. And I
Oh,
studied, and I took Second City, and I took acting class, and I went to Indiana University and drama school, and this and that, whatever. And I got out to LA. But what I did was I gave myself pretty much an unrealistic goal, and I didn't hit that goal, and that's when I got into casting. Although I don't look at myself as ever being a great actor, probably not even a good actor. But I had fun, and you really gotta train to be a good actor. You know, so Richard, I want to thank you for coming on. I mean, I think you gave such great, valuable information. It's always fun to have someone on, and always fun to have a friend on, and to just talk about the industry. Let me ask you this. I do I bring this into a couple of my podcasts, and let me ask you this: how much do you think AI is going to have an effect on our industry looking forward?
I think it's going to have a big effect. It's actually a little nerve wracking in that, I mean, I don't believe they can use people's likeness unless sell your likeness. They can't just like digitally create Brad Pitt and put him in a movie.
Right.
They might be able to digitally create some version of a Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and a whomever, and then come up with something new. But I do think I think that will take jobs away from actors. Also, you look at kids today. What are they doing most of the time? They're on their little devices playing games. So these are characters that are computer generated that I think they could become stars in their own right.
Yeah.
Or even look at the animated stuff out there now. It's looking so good and high quality, and you know, people might become the stars of tomorrow. So I do think it will have an effect on the acting industry, and it does concern me. What opportunities will there be in 10 or 20 years? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's another hurry up and wait and see what happens. And I also want to let the audience know that Richard and I did not talk before this. If you're watching on YouTube, we did not talk about our dress code. It looks like we had the same shirt on. Um, but I want to thank you for coming on, Rolling with Olan. Can you give out your email one more time for anyone who wants to reach out to
Yes,
you?
my first initial and last name, and then my company. It's R Kerner, KERNER, KMA at gmail.com.
Great. Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you for coming on, spending your time with us. And thank you, audience, once again for rolling with Olin. And we'll see you on the next one.